we've been blessed by a pleasant surprise. While people are talking for a couple minutes here, there's coffee and donuts. Please help yourself. I'd like to just quickly introduce our local candidate here, the next member of Parliament for Oshawa, James Morton.
Well, it really is an amazing pleasure to have the Honourable Member of Parliament for Toronto Centre, Bob Rae, with us today. It just makes it wonderful. And Bob is here today because the Liberal Party knows and cares about Oshawa. The Liberal Party knows that we can, with a little bit of work, we can take this riding. And this is a big deal because if you look at some of the polling, and Sue can bring up the speed on it if you want, we're neck and neck with the NDP, and we are moving up on the Conservatives. We have a lot of momentum for those debates. The Liberals also see the threat that the Conservatives pose, and it is a real threat to important things, to healthcare, to pensions, and to manufacturing jobs here in Oshawa. We really, really have to focus on that, particularly for this remaining week, this one, the election. Bob represents our party's history and our party's future. It's a tradition about caring about people, investing in Canada, and caring about the things that matter to Canadians and to people here in Oshawa. I want to thank Bob. He's in an incredibly busy time. He's been going, he's got a campaign himself. It's easy to think that the leaders of the party can just take off and come here. But you know what? There's actually people in Toronto Centre who want to be part, but he's got to go canvassing. So I want to thank him enormously for being here today. And I want to thank his staff for making it possible for him to come today. You know what? We've got 1 week left, a little more than 1 week left, and there's still Easter, there's the royal wedding, but you know what? Coming out of those debates, I'm excited. This is something we can do. We can make Oshawa Liberal again. And remember before, I forget his name, Colin Carey came in, this was a Liberal riding. It will be a Liberal riding in a Liberal government after May 2nd. And having said that, I want to welcome and ask if he'd be prepared to speak to us for a couple of minutes, Bob Rae.
It's great to be here. First of all, I'm delighted to be here for James. I've known James for quite a while, and he's a great guy. He's a great, very, very effective lawyer. I won't tell any lawyer jokes today, I can assure you. But James is a very, very well-respected guy. It's great that he's thrown his hat in the ring here, and it's wonderful to have this many people out. Frankly, 25 people out on a rainy Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. It's a good sign that we're ready to go and ready to get organized. James is quite right. We're looking at as a party, we're looking now at a lot of very close three-way races. As you know, in three-way races, a lot of things can happen in the last week that make the difference. There's a lot of splits that can happen. A lot of people moving from one party to the other. I think it's really important in the last week. Just talking to the leader last night, saying to him that it's very important for us to be very positive about the Liberal Party, about the Liberal tradition, about what we represent in the country, and about the risks that we face as a country from the ideologies of the left and the right taking over in an easy way. We are very familiar with what Mr. Harper can do, because all of us in this room can remember what Mr. Harris did and the kind of price that we had to pay. How hospitals were closed, how the education system was turned into a battlefield, how there was such significant underfunding of the environment that people died in Walkerton. We know that story, and we also know that all the same people who are running Mr. Harper's government are the same people who are running the Harris government. So we don't need to reinvent. We don't need to make up stories. We don't need to talk about idle threats. We can actually just say, this is what happened before. Do you really want that to happen again? Is that really what you want to see happen in the province of Ontario being applied to all of Canada? And I don't think people do. I really don't believe that's where people want to go. This community has been through a lot. Oshawa has been through a great deal, and it's really, really important that we remind people that there are sensible ways of trying to get out of the challenging times that we're in, and there are not so sensible ways. And I can tell you, when you look at what Jack Layton is talking about, what he's been talking about just over the weekend. Today I heard him talking on the radio saying this would be a great time to reopen the Constitution. Jack, you've got to get real here. The people of Canada are focusing on jobs, they're focusing on the economy, they're focusing on what's worrying them. We don't want to go back into that swamp. We don't want to reopen all those issues all over again and spend the next 5 years debating that stuff. It might be academically interesting for some people, but it is not in the national interest for us to be focusing all of our attention on that question. We have to demonstrate and show a capacity to focus on what really matters to people. People are worried about their jobs. They want a plan that's going to help the economy to grow. We've seen remarkable growth here in Oshawa, and I always find it funny that the guy next door takes all the credit for what's happened. If we had listened to the Reform Party, and we had listened to the Alliance Party, and we had listened to Stephen Harper and Jim Flaherty, the banks would not be competitive. The banks would have merged and faced huge problems. They would have been encouraged to do what the American banks ended up doing. We would have had huge problems with respect to that. We wouldn't have had the sound kind of approach to our finances that we had under the Liberals. It was very tough to do, but it was done. We just wouldn't have had that kind of discipline, that kind of strength. And those are the facts. I mean, it is unbelievable to me that when Jim Flaherty wrote that long economic statement that's, I call it the longest suicide note in history, where he said there was no recession, we weren't going to be affected in Canada because we were somehow going to remain all above this stuff. It wasn't going to touch us. Didn't matter. And suddenly, the storm hit Canada, as everybody knew that it would, and Parliament responded in the way that Parliament felt it was necessary to respond. So we're into a challenging election. Challenging because these are tight fights, these are tough fights. But I really think it's important that we just remember and remind people about the basics about the family package that Mr. Gatti has put forward, the basics about why we think it's important to put people first and to let the banks and the oil companies wait for their tax cut. They don't have to get it right away, they can wait. We understand what it takes to build a competitive economy and create the innovation that we need for Oshawa, the new economy that we need for Oshawa. And it's very important that we just keep reminding people about that issue and those good times. So, thank you very much for coming. Just don't forget, the last week really counts. Knocking on every door, reminding people about voting, getting people out in the advance poll, voting in the advance poll, getting the ballots into the ballot box at least once. It's very important. Very important that we do this. Ma'am, you have your hand up.
Mr. Rae, I just wonder why the Liberal Party is not stressing the fact that the Conservatives inherited a balanced budget, and that the 1% reduction in the GST cost us billions of dollars, put us in a financial situation before we even got into the economic mess. I don't understand why we're not hearing more about that.
Well, I mean, I referred to it just moments ago when I talked about how we've had, they're taking credit for something that wasn't really their responsibility, but you're absolutely right. I mean, the fact of the matter is that the Tories like to say, I'm sure they say it in the all-candidates meetings, the Liberals are, big spenders, and they're putting money. Let me remind you, when the Conservatives took over, the government was spending $175 billion and had a $13 billion surplus. $13 billion surplus. Now, they're spending $245 billion, and we have a $30 billion deficit, which has come down from 50. They've added well over $100 billion to the debt of the country since they took office.
How much in Tony Clement's writing?
That's right. How much of that was on Tony Clement? You know, that's really the challenge that we face, is to remind people about these facts, and to keep hammering away, but also to keep putting forward our positive ideas and our positive propositions for the future. So I want to thank everybody for coming out. We're going to do a little bit of canvassing now, and I'm hitting 5 stops today, so it's important for us to keep moving. But it's a great pleasure to be here, and really want to encourage everybody to get out and do whatever you can to put things over the top on May the 2nd. Thank you.